Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about teaching life skills in your homeschool. Today, I have with me Elizabeth Green from My Speech and Debate Coach, Ms. Lemure from Melissa is Teaching, Nikki Lubbing from Skillibration, and Z. You're going to have to tell me how to say your last name. I apologize, I didn't ask beforehand.
Ilyuda,
From
it's
Adroit.
okay. Ilyuda, thanks, England.
Z. Iluda from Adroit
From
Comics.
Adroit
Thank you guys
Comics.
so much for joining us. I would love to hear where you guys are joining us from. Go ahead and share in the comments. I'm joining you all from Arizona. And I'd love to hear where each of the guest speakers is joining us from as well.
I'm from South Carolina.
I am from Virginia, but joining you from Quito, Ecuador, in South America.
Nice. Oh, yay.
I'm in Illinois, in the Chicago suburbs.
So we're just south of Atlanta in Georgia, but we're heading further south. Florida's next, and then hopefully we can head towards Ecuador. We're looking at Central America in the next year. So that's exciting.
Very cool. Well, I see that we have two people joining us live so far. So go ahead and share in the comments if you guys have any questions about teaching life skills to your homeschoolers. And I'll be sure to have the guest speakers answer those questions as well. So, first question is, what are your tips for teaching your children life skills? So let's start with Elizabeth.
Okay, so we primarily focus on communications. That's the main life skill that we do as a business, and I focus on in my house too. Try to as well. So the main thing I can say about building communication skills in your kids, it is more about you than it actually is about them. In my experience, active listening is the number one way to build confidence and communication skills in kids. And this is a lot harder than it sounds sometimes, right? Like, we're busy people, we're doing a lot of things. You might be helping one student with math, you might be feeding the baby, and your 10-year-old's trying to tell you about their favorite game, right? And you're just kind of going, right? We're all guilty of that, right? And that is life. That is just part of it. But I think I always tell people one of the things that makes our classes so successful is just because these kids join the class and they have an adult who is active listening to them and are actively listening to them and asking them questions about their thoughts and all of that. So it's such a simple thing, but it is something we have to be cognizant of. And so I would always encourage you to, you can't always do it, but do set aside some time to really fully listen to your kids, ask them questions, even if they're telling you about something you don't understand. If they're going on and on about Minecraft, ask them questions about it, right? That I think that is one of the key things. And prompting them, of course, with topics, always giving them opportunities to speak and have an audience to listen to. But it really starts with us.
Mm-hmm.
I can add if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Skillibration is an online foreign language school, and we're committed to taking students' foreign language skills from zero to fuego. Fuego's fire, if you didn't know. Sometimes people ask me that, and they're like, I just looked up the word fuego. But my background is in Spanish, particularly, and through learning Spanish, I learned so many soft skills and other life skills, and a lot of world school families might be interested in what I have to say right now, but through travel, studying abroad, I had to learn decision making skills, financial literacy. When I was little, when I traveled with my family, my mom would have me sit in the front seat of the taxi cab and ask the driver questions, start conversations with locals. So learning a little bit of risk taking skills and just communication with all walks of life. It really can open up so many doors when you take those risks when you're traveling and getting to know people around the world.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add something really quick to what Nikki just said before if we veer off of communication skills. Even if you're not a traveling family, I love that idea, Nikki. I think that's amazing. In college, one of my best friends in college would beg us to call and order pizza because she was too nervous to pick up the phone and call and order pizza. And so that is something like I want my kids to do, right? They can call and order pizza, getting them used to talking to people. And especially if you're traveling, I love that. I think that's fantastic. But even if you're not, there are opportunities from home to get them communicating to other people.
Yes, I did that in Mexico too. I ordered pizza on the phone. So imagine doing it in another language.
Totally.
Learning skill there for the language.
I'll hop in with Melissa's teaching. A lot of my resources have to do with critical thinking, mainly focused on gifted learners, but also gifted in every area. Our kids are gifted in every area, and there are different ways that we can meet those needs. And so for me, a lot of that requires critical thinking and thinking through tasks, everyday tasks, as minimal as, cleaning up the kitchen after lunch. For example, what's the process to clean up the kitchen after lunch? Am I going to sweep first? Am I going to wash the dishes first? Am I going to wipe off the counter, wipe all the crumbs off the counter first? What's the best order to do that in? That's a really basic life skill. Nobody's making money off of this. This is just a basic life skill, but it requires critical thinking. And when we talked through that with our kids, they were like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Okay. But you can kind of extrapolate that to other things. So I think that is a huge part of creating kind of a life skill, intelligent part of your homeschool.
And I think, Melissa, those are things that we don't always think about, right? We're just like, well, of course they would know to sweep last, right?
Yeah.
Well, how would they know that, right? And so rather than us just telling them, asking them, I love that. I think that's a great tip.
I think you all have said such great things. Critical thinking, communication skills, those are two really, really important things to us, even when it comes into our daily conversations. Sometimes we can get into, somewhat heavy conversations, more than maybe other families discuss when it comes to, our perspective on the world and things that are happening in the world, and really being able to analyze and look at things that are happening and, is this true? Is this not true? What information are we receiving? And being able to filter through in a way that we can make the best decisions regarding our lives. So I love that you ladies patient, critical thinking. We're a very artistic family. We spoke just a bit before we launched. We have a comic book company, Drake Comics. We're homeschoolers. We really created our books for homeschoolers to inspire them when it comes to writing and the arts and reading. And that's a huge life skill just in itself, reading. So that's where I'll go. I'll say reading. Literacy is so important, and that's really one of the foundations of why we started our program when it comes to the comics and the reading program, to really inspire kids to read, because if we're not engaging, they're not learning. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of our children even dealt with in the public school system, and why a lot of our kids have fallen behind or haven't been able to get hit those targets that we want them to hit, is because they're just not engaged. So we want to engage, we want to make learning fun, and that's a big part of how we homeschool. So so reading in a fun way. That's what I'll throw in the mix.
So I got a question here from what app do you recommend to use to improve your language skills? Do you have an app that you would recommend?
There's so many tools out there, so even YouTube, so there you can search in YouTube specifically what topic you want to study in that language. That's probably the best place to start, if you're looking for something for free. And then from there you can see, what teachers resonate, and then even if they make recommendations too. So foreign language these days, it's so nice because it's everywhere. You can literally find it everywhere. And if you have a VPN, you can listen to Netflix from another country. So you could listen to something in the target language on an app like Netflix. I always recommend too, if there's movies that you watch in English, is that movie available or dubbed in a foreign language, such as Spanish or any other foreign language, because you can find that as well. It's pretty common. And if you already know the context in your native language, then it's much easier to understand in the target language.
I would add in, our kids are bilingual by nature, just my husband and I, and we're adding in French. And so we use Preply. So just another option to add in. There's lots of classes everywhere, but Preply is kind of a nice marketplace because you can really check, rates and things like that. And our kids are currently taking French with a French comedian, which is really fun. And
I love that. That's exciting. Okay.
Yeah, we don't teach foreign languages. I can barely speak a word of anything other than English, even though I have taken a lot of French in my life. But I was just talking with another teacher just earlier this week, and she was talking about teaching Spanish and how finding something that the kids are interested in, like you all just said, is so crucial. Because she said, I could say the banana is yellow in any language, and that's okay, right? Or I could say Pokemon is yellow, right? And for the Pokemon fans, they're gonna be like, yes, Pokemon's yellow. And it can say it in whatever language you're teaching them. So even though that's not in my realm, I just wanted to add on based on that conversation I had the other day that their interest and, like you said, Z, having them engaged in what they're learning is going to be absolutely key. So regardless of what app you use, making sure it's something that meets their interest.
And this ties into life skills with, taking, those life skills in our homeschool, for example. We've got a kiddo who is really excited about writing scripts for things. And I was like, I'm not like a drama person, but like, go for it. Let's see. And we had another homeschool friend send us a video that they had made. And that was all it took. A little bit of, I don't know, social pressure, a little bit of social encouragement. I'm not sure what that was, but she said, I'm going to do it. So she said, can I have your phone? I was like, girl, I'm going to text, these moms. I want to let them know what the plan is, what the schedule is. Let's meet at this park at this time, this day. I'll write the script. I'll print it. I'll bring it. No costumes or anything. You just bring the phone. And I was like, fine, great. So we did it. And then she's editing in Canva because I've taught her how to do that. And so it's that sort of thing. That is a life skill. Golly, I use that in my business daily. And that's a way to kind of get those life skills in via their passions, the things that get them excited.
Awesome. I love the scripting. I'm a theater girl. That's my background. So I love all of that. And speech and debate. So all of this is good stuff.
So I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, but what life skills do you feel are overlooked by parents that you feel that that people could use having a little more focus on or being more purposeful in the way that they're teaching it?
If I kick off, I'll kick off this time if that's okay. So beyond the art, the artsy stuff, really, really big in our home and our homeschool is food. Like food is so important to us. And knowing where our food is coming from, we're not homesteading yet. That's in our future. Pray for us. But knowing where our food is coming from, doing our best to make everything that we can, reading every label. This is a journey that we've been on over years as it's been like cleaning up our diet, trying to eat the right foods. So teaching our kids to really read every label. Like if you ever see us in the grocery store, from the little one up to the big one, we're like, what's in this? Can we eat that? No, put it away. So we make our own breads now. We just finished making peanut butter. They miss snacks. I didn't know there was a thing called ingredient family. My teenager's like, oh, I saw a meme and it was like, are you an ingredient family or a snack family? I'm like, okay, we're ingredient family. Okay, that's good. That's a thing. So, if you want a snack, let's figure out how to make it. So Asante, we have 4 daughters. So my second oldest, she made like fruit roll-ups. So we're really on a mission to make everything that we can because, we have to take care of our bodies. We have to nourish ourselves. So making your own food, preparing your own food, and eventually growing and raising our own food will be a part of our focus. But food is really important.
I love that. I totally agree. I think that we were also, my family was also an ingredient family.
I would also say, I would also add in chores. I did talk about, we also have 4 kids, Z, and I don't know. I feel like at that point, you're just kind of, every family needs some sort of system there. But Amelia, I know you get this too with a large family feel. Everybody has to pitch in or else things just don't work well. And so figuring out kind of an executive function bump up, like what needs to be done. I've started trying to ask more questions than give commands. That makes sense. My mind works in percentages. So I'm like, where am I at right now today with the amount of percentages on commands versus questions? Hey, look around. What needs to be done? What do you see that could be done right now? And when they kind of open their eyes, they think, oh, yeah, there is this stuff that needs to be put away. I do need to make my bed. I do need to get this done. And so there's these very basic things that I feel like we probably should call life skills because later on, I know I knew a kid or two in college who just really didn't have those life skills. And so you're like, where were you? What did you learn? You didn't learn how to do your laundry. You didn't learn how to put it away. You didn't learn XYZ. But we need to teach those as well. And so figuring out the way to do that without nagging, without making it this huge to-do list either. So love the idea of executive function when it comes to building those life skills in terms of whatever it may be, our schoolwork or chores or other skills that we're working on.
Executive function, that is so important. I appreciate that. Executive function.
Yeah. I have something to add to that too.
Yeah, go ahead,
I don't know
Nikki.
if Elizabeth was going to go. Mine was going to say, I was going to talk about diplomatic conversations, just because that was, again, just going back to traveling and learning about other cultures. I had to learn how to navigate, how to speak with people and looking at their perspective on the world. That can help. It's invaluable in the workplace. Even when you're in the same culture, people have different personality types. So you have to learn how to navigate that in the workplace, and that can really be set you up for success, even when you're looking at promotions, and climbing your way up the ladder, or even as an entrepreneur, if you're the leader, you're the owner of the business, how to work with your employees or your contractors. It comes into play in so many different ways.
Yeah. Even in interviewing, right? To get your first
Interviewing
job,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And friendships too.
Right.
Everything.
My
everything.
friends here
all-
that are
yes.
of another culture, I really
Yeah.
have to be careful of what I say, how I
Yeah.
say it, just because you have to be sensitive there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to add two quick things. I love everything that was said and wanted to add on to something Z you mentioned earlier about the information that we receive and, diving into, is this fact? Is this not? Our kids today, like this has to be a focus in our schools and in our homeschool environments, in our families, of helping people differentiate truth from not truth, right? There is so much out there. They have access to so much information. And I'm a former journalist, so this is like ingrained in me, right? Where did that news come from? Where did that source come from? Who said this? How can you prove this? And my kids love to tell me things that they saw on YouTube. And like random, the most like random over the top things. And I'm like, well, how do you know that's true? I saw it on YouTube. Well, from who? Just a random person? Well, yeah. Well, go find a source that tells me that that's really true and I'll believe you. But I don't believe you until then, and really trying to get them to understand that just because somebody says something on YouTube is not true. But I think that's so, so important for our kids in this day and age. And then the other life skill, I know we've already talked heavily about communication, but I feel like in my experience in school and my kids' experience in school, my kids are not homeschooled, actually. They go to a public school. My husband's a public school teacher. So we have experience in both because I work with homeschool kids. Especially in the public school system, we're so focused on writing, spelling, correct grammar, punctuation, and not as much about getting the idea out. And so my oldest son is so intelligent when it comes to animals and insects. He could tell you any detail that you want to know about them, and they're true, right? But if I asked him to write something about it, I would get like 2 sentences where he could stand there and give a whole speech about it. And so, yes, this is still tied to communications, but as we've said, that's a very huge life skill that we all need. And not that parents in the homeschool world overlook this by any means, but I would encourage you to really consider, how often are you asking your kids to tell you something that they've planned, they've researched, they've prepped out in advance, and they're sharing it with you verbally, as opposed to writing it. Or if you are having them write it in advance, forget the spelling, forget the punctuation, forget the grammar. You're holding them up from getting their actual ideas out, which is the most important part of it, I think.
I love that, Elizabeth. I think so. I teach other kids too. So we have our kids, and now I've started outsourcing a bit. And then I have classes that we teach with other homeschool kids, and I also tutor. I tutor kids in the public school system and work in reading. And I think that a lot of times when it comes to writing, that's a big thing that can hold the kids back, is if they're stressing about the spelling, they're stressing about the grammar, they're stressing about their handwriting, and they can't really process or communicate their ideas. So I think that's a big idea. And then this goes into reading. That's something that holds the babies back with reading too. So I'll work with kids and they'll get intimidated by the bigger words, and they get so intimidated, that they just shut down because they don't necessarily have those skills to break through the words. I know I just took it from writing to reading, but that's that's my flip transition.
It's all the
But
same. I mean, it all goes
totally
together,
agree.
you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Being able to
if I can throw out one of my freebies is a writing journal, and it's based on what I do with our kids on Google Slides. So they can be on one computer, I can be on another. I'm not breathing over their shoulder, you know, that anxiety-inducing environment. And we can do kind of indirect grammar or no grammar if the idea is just to communicate their idea. Let's get it out there. Let's get it out there. We can deal with this one, you know, 10 days down the line. But the idea is to get them writing. And so I've got those available in English, French, that's helpful because it's a journal. In itself, because it is a little bit of like, how do I feel today? How am I doing today? What went well? What didn't go well? And sometimes I'll read that in our kids' writing and they'll say, hey, we did this yesterday. I was really scared. I didn't know they were scared.
Yeah, that's
but it's a really
another
important
skill
thing
I was
to
going to say.
hear. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go for it. Add on to that.
I was just going to say emotional regulation is another skill to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Muted.
You're
muted,
on mute, Amelia.
Yeah.
Thank you. We just did a class this Tuesday, and it was Introduction to Spanish, and it was teaching different feeling words. I thought it was really interesting that they were sharing that sometimes when little kids especially are having a hard time communicating how they're feeling, being able to have another language to communicate in makes it easier for them, because maybe being mad is something, or angry is something that is scary, or something that they don't want to be mad or sad. But when they say it in a different language, it helps them to be able to communicate that without kind of feeling like it's a bad thing or they're going to get in trouble. But I thought that was really interesting perspective.
Yeah, that's a real thing. When you're communicating in another language, you can sometimes feel like you're a different person in a way. You take on a different personality, kind of, because you're kind of stepping into that culture. So that definitely makes sense.
So I want to circle back around. How do you guys make chores fun? How do you motivate your kids? This is something that we get in the group a lot. People asking, oh my gosh, the house is a mess. I'm just trying to keep everybody alive. How do I get them to help? Especially once they get to like 8, 10 years old, they're able to help. How do you motivate them?
We motivate with by Friday night. That's when we watch movies. We watch a movie on Friday and Saturday, sometimes Sunday, but there's no TV during the week. And so it's a big deal. That movie is a big deal. And they know that they won't get to sit down to watch that until the bathrooms are clean. We have 2 bathrooms in our house and 2 girls who are of age to be able to clean really well. And so they will both do those, and the other kids will do tasks that are age appropriate. And that, is it gatekeeping? Probably. But you know, putting a a paywall, shall we call it, between them and the movie is kind of important for us.
I guess I'm pretty similar to Melissa in that it may not necessarily be the Friday movie, but you know, I'm trying. I'm not the best disciplinarian. I'm like a really, you know, happy mom, and sometimes I probably, you know, when you grow up not having a lot of a certain thing, because I wasn't the closest to my mom, I'm like, let's do this, let's bake cookies, let's, you know, every day's a party. So my husband tries to help find a balance with that, you know, and it's like, okay, well, we can't do the sweets, we can't do this until things are clean. And being that we're such artistic people, I think oftentimes we're a bit more easy breezy with things than some people might be. So I've been working to have more discipline, and I've been working to have, you know, things done in a better order. So I may not be the best to answer this one. I know there'll probably be cookies or cupcakes at the end of it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm just here for the answers on this one, because well, my kids do chores, but they're certainly not fun around here. So
It's not.
Well, in the summertime, my mom would always have us do chores before we were allowed to go play outside, which I always thought was really clever, because it made going and playing outside something that we were all earning. And so we would like play until it was like dusk, because we're like, we earned this. And then she got the house to herself. So I thought that was like like looking
the real
back,
winner
like,
is.
oh, I was just like, that was really clever. So do you guys have any freebies to help parents teach life skills? I'd love for you guys to share them in the comments of this video. Just kind of tell people a little bit about any resources that you might have to help parents teach life skills, and then you can share the links in the comments as well.
I have a habit tracker. So if you're struggling to get in the habit of doing something, it's just like a sheet download freebie that you can check off your habits that you're working on. And it's editable, so you can make it for any habit.
That's awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, see.
So I don't know that I have a freebie specifically for life skills, but if it relates to reading as a life skill and literacy, then yes, I can share a freebie. We always have free copies of our comic book in the digital form. They'll always be free. So I'll share links to that. And we're also starting, I'll be doing like either bi-weekly or weekly meetups that'll involve talking, communication. We'll also have writing involved. So we'll have that coming up soon too. So I'll be sharing that in the group. But I will post a link to where you can get our free downloads and where you can sign up for, the free things we have coming up soon.
Awesome. I'll also share those writing journals. They're just very simple and they're editable. So if it did work, you can just add in what you want or change what you don't want, and have your kiddo get writing in there.
And we have 2 out right now. We have one that is 52 impromptu speaking topics for kids. So one to do every week of the year. They're silly questions, but all kids love them. I mean, we have extra kids here for dinner every night, it seems like. And I have them do these, and they know it's going to be like school. I make them raise their hand. They have to answer it in the speech format that we also include in the freebie. And so they'll groan at first. And then as soon as I ask the question, they're like, they absolutely love it. So we have that. And then we also just launched a free debate lesson. I'm really excited about that. It's got everything you need to be able to do a formal, style debate at home with your kiddos. So I'll include both those links.
So I want to tell everybody about the latest issue of the Homeschool Quest magazine. We have a ton of tips from the community on homeschooling multiple ages, only children, and large families. So we wanted to really focus on the family aspect of homeschooling, and we have some really great articles in there. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to that in the comments, and I'm also showing that up on the screen. We just launched that this Tuesday. And it has over 100 pages, and it is just chock full of great resources from all of these wonderful guest speakers as well. So I would highly recommend that you guys go and check that out. I also am going to be doing a workshop with My Homeschool Village in just about an hour. It's all going to be about avoiding homeschool burnout. I'm going to drop a link so you guys can RSVP to that. And then we're also going to be talking about creating writing journals with Sarah Takis. So I'm also going to drop a link to that as well. We've got a lot on the schedule for today. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. I really appreciate you sharing all of your tips and invaluable insight.
Oh, yay. Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Adios.
Awesome, ladies.